Hoping that's the problem.
Okay, your picture is static, but your voice is perfect.
Okay, well that's fine. There you go. Let me turn the camera off. So let me start sharing my
Slides.
my yes.
Okay, everybody. So just and I asked Andre just to tell you a little bit more about himself. Andre is a ex Bloom boy. Is an ex Koffsie. He did some magic at UFS at Radio Oranje, right? And then
Yeah.
and then went on to Radio 5, which was like, I remember when Andre were telling us last year, it was such an interesting project because we all know Radio 5 has been around forever, but what we don't know is it was basically almost gone. So if it, and I would like to just hear, Andre is now going to tell us what his next project is, but just to like a close off of the Radio 5 thing would also be nice. It's just so interesting what they were doing with Radio 5 to see if they can re-engineer it and everything. So Andre, I'm going to just turn my camera off for bandwidth, and then we can't see your slideshow yet. I'll tell you when we can see your slideshow. But guys, I promise you one thing. I said to Marie before we started, I can't wait for Andre's next episode. But what is nice is Andre is doing the stuff for real. So he's actually going out there, running the projects, having to make some really difficult decisions sometimes, having to decide what to change and whatever, and has been doing so very, very successful. So Andre, I'm going to be quiet now so that you can continue. Thank you very much, Andre.
No problems. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's always great to be able to talk to people. First of all, can you see anything that I'm sharing?
Nothing, Andre.
I was hoping you'd be seeing a PowerPoint presentation that I'd made. Okay. While we do this, let me just see what's happening here. Can you hear me? You can hear me fine. Can you see me?
I can't see you, Andre, but I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, so I'm going to hang up and I'm going to reconnect. Okay.
Okay,
let's try this. Turn it off. Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfect, Andre.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see you. Wow, Andre, perfect. Perfect.
Okay, now let me try and share something with you. Here we go. That should be it. Can you see
perfect
that?
As well, Andre.
Okay,
so
yes, that's the one. But now, before we get to the Open Wakker story, you did ask to just end off the previous one. So last year's chat, the project was implementing a new lineup on 5FM. For those of you who perhaps do listen to 5FM, you would know that last year we had some massive changes. Those changes have now been underway and in place for a year and a bit, actually a little bit more, a year and sort of 2 months. And we are now starting to reap the benefits of those changes. We are now on the 2nd of June, and our budget or our bookings for ads, we're on 92% of budget on the 2nd of June for the month of June. So we should end at about, hopefully, between 150 and 180% of target, which when it comes to the SABC are not usually the numbers you see. Usually it's the other way. Usually the money is leaving the building at that kind of rate. So those are the kind of things we're seeing. Happening there, and it's good. It's fine. You know, we took some tough decisions. We went through a lot of flack, but like any of you in the management sphere, you'll know that these decisions are hard, and sometimes the rewards only come in later. But today I'd like to talk to you about another project I'm busy with, which is the RSG Open Wakker. It's the Afrikaans service, the Afrikaans radio station at the SABC. They started a brand new breakfast show. Now, I have to give you some context as to why this happened. News, as you know, these days is very... it's crucial that your news offering, if you are presenting news, that it's believable. With fake news going around, etc., etc., to get rid of fake news and to make sure that you have editorial integrity, the morning news program on RSG is called Monitor. Monitor used to be for 2 hours in the mornings from 6 until 8. And then from 8 until 9, there used to be a program called Praat Saam. Now, RSG, the Afrikaans service, have 1.4 million listeners. And as part of the SABC's turnaround, it was felt that these 1.4 million listeners, we need to monetize them somehow. So in order to do this, what then happened was a decision was taken to get rid of the Praat Saam show, which used to happen between 8 and 9 in the mornings, and to steal 1 hour of the news program, Monitor, and create a brand new program called Op en Wakker, which would be a hybrid model between a commercial and a news/talk radio station kind of a model to try and monetize and create a property that potential sponsors could attach themselves to. Because on the Monitor product that the SABC currently have on RSG, they are unable to monetize that because they need editorial integrity. They cannot have the news sponsored because otherwise it is felt that your news product can be influenced by outside external forces. So that is the broad outline of what is happening. So they decided between the hours of 7 and 9 to create this program called Op en Wakker, of which I am the producer. The reason this was done, as I briefly touched on now, is that in South Africa, 6.8 million adults speak Afrikaans as their first language. Of this, 3.4 million of the colored population speak Afrikaans, 75% of them as their home language. 2.7 million white people in South Africa speak Afrikaans, 60% of those as their home language. But I'm not sure if everybody knows this. Afrikaans is the most understood language in the country. Plus minus 30 million adults in South Africa understand Afrikaans. So this is a lucrative market that can be tapped in and can help the SABC to get out of its financial quandary. 35% of spending power is from the Afrikaans consumer, which is quite a chunk of change. And especially in tough financial times, it's something to keep in mind. So it was decided to start this program. Op en Wakker, 7 to 9, Monday to Fridays on the Afrikaans radio service at the SABC, RSG, which stands for Radio Sonder Grense. For those of you who don't understand Afrikaans, it's Radio Without Borders. That was So this is, and what I'm showing you now is the initial presentation that was given to the very higher ups at the SABC, the likes of Ian Plaatjes, etc. They put together this team, and they decided what they would do is they would change the radio model slightly. Instead of having one presenter, they would have 3 presenters, and the presenters would then also handle other parts of a radio program. So as you would see here, Sue Peiler-Slabbert, she's a presenter, and she also handles the lifestyle sections of the program. Gustav Greiling, he's a presenter, but he also reads the news and does actuality. Robbie Cruz, he's a presenter, but he also handles the sport. And we have Blaine Jones, who does the traffic and social media, and myself, Andrè, who's the producer. The problems start coming. You see there's a question mark here. Anytime someone in management puts a question mark, know that that is exactly where the problems are beginning. So just remember this for when the story continues later on. So this was the team that started the show on the 4th of April. This guy here, Andrè Kunz, who is the producer, got approached to do the show 2 weeks before that. So there was already a problem. And I got a frantic phone call from a program manager who clearly was out of his depth and in a lot of trouble because he had 3 presenters, he had no producer, and he had no structure. He then went along and he put on, these were the sales sort of team at the SABC. Another big problem at the SABC, which I'll come to later. Now, this program manager who phoned me 2 weeks before his brand new breakfast show was going to go live, saying he did not have a producer, he came up with this structure. So you'll see here, there's lots of things happening. News and weather to take 10 minutes. Traffic, which is sponsored. He's already got sponsors going, but he doesn't know how yet. But anyway, that's going to take 2 minutes. Yeah, between 12 minutes past 7 and 13 minutes past 7, he's got something called Greet the Nation and a poll on social media, which as words sound fantastic. But when I then tell you that RSG as a radio entity does not have any social media yet, this creates a problem because we have no audience to do this Greet the Nation and do a poll on social media with, because we have no platform. Then we've got music put in there. Then we've got ad-lib newspapers at 17 minutes past 20. You'll notice here that nowhere in the first half an hour of this show, up until 26 minutes past, have we got any advertisements yet, which is a massive problem because we need to pay for this radio station somehow. You'll also notice that between 7:28 and 7:30, he's then put in some random spot breaks. But if you know anything about radio, you'll know that you cannot go from ads into news for the exact reason I mentioned earlier. You need to have editorial integrity. So we have a thing in radio called juxtaposition. You always try to juxtapose music between any talk or advertisements or news, etc., or to split up things. It's called juxtaposition. So this is this program manager who will remain nameless to protect the guilty. He's come up with these things and he's put these. Now, this is the first hour. And so I can go on to the second hour, which has many of these similar problems. We've got ad breaks that are non-existent. We've got news. We've got ads going straight into news bulletins. You'll see there once again between 8:28 and 8:30. There's a sports bulletin right next to an advert. Now, the problem with the radio business is if you don't know, you don't know. So the people at the SABC, higher up management, unfortunately have never spent much time in an actual radio studio. They've never made the product that they are in charge of, which is a big problem. It's a massive problem in any organization. I'm sure in the businesses that you run and are working for, it is maybe you have some of the similar problems. The management don't know what are happening on the ground level. They aren't physically part of producing the thing that your company sells. Now, in the radio business, lots of people think we sell time. It is incorrect. We do not sell time. The radio business is in the business of emotions. We allow people to feel a certain way about a thing. Generally, in the mornings, you want to make people feel happy and upbeat. But we also, let's say, the floods in Natal happen, and we're doing a money-raising thing. Then the emotion we are peddling is empathy. We want to make people feel empathy towards the people who have suffered a tragedy down in Natal, and therefore try and liberate some money out of their wallets. But if you are not physically on the ground making radio, you don't understand this. You think you sell time, which is why the time in these clocks that have been set out are so meticulous, but they're selling the wrong thing. So anyway, this was what was sold to the management. 2 weeks to go, I get thrown into the deep end. I need to be the producer of this breakfast show. We go live, and you know, like most things, people don't like change. In the week leading up to the changeover, a very beloved radio broadcaster who lost her show, the lady that was presenting the Praat Saam program that used to go out between 8 and 9 on RSG. She had lost her job. On her last show, this program manager who put this together for us, this self-same clock, as a gesture, wanted to burst. Hello, can you hear me? Someone's mic's on.
Andrè, can you hear you? I think there's info at LLRWS that's mic's on.
Okay. So this program manager, who had obviously made the decision to change these things, on the final day of this presenter, who I'll name her just now, on her final show, which she had prepared, and it was also her final goodbye to her listeners that she had served for many years. The program manager burst into the studio trying to make an overwhelming gesture to come and say thank you to her. But if you know anything about the radio business or anybody who is a performer, don't mess with what they've prepared, because there's a flow to what they're trying to present to their audience. She then sent the program manager out the studio, to which he took umbrage and turned her off at main control. So she never got a chance to say goodbye to her audience. This also then was the fodder that the media needed to give the SABC a hiding, because now they also had people who had lost their jobs, who were quite happy to feed stories to the media. So news outlets like Netwerk 24 and Network 24, Beeld en Report, had a field day crucifying the Afrikaans radio service, because they have a financial interest to do so. They have podcasts, they have audio, they have a news product that they would prefer people to use other than the radio. So it makes sense for them to, first of all, create content for themselves by riding the bandwagon of the SABC that is so badly managed, which in this case it really was. And they have a financial interest because they want people to be reading their spots. So this is how we started our brand new breakfast show on the Afrikaans radio service at RSG. After 2 weeks of continual abuse from listeners, from the media, a crisis meeting was held. Actually, it was 3 weeks, which was now about 3 weeks ago when this happened. Crisis meeting happened. So what I now do, that was the program manager's presentation up to now of what he had prepared for the higher ups at the SABC. From here is my presentation. I presented this to the station manager of RSG last week in an attempt to right the ship of what had happened to us. So first of all, I summarize here what happened, what went wrong. So the first thing that became painfully obvious after doing the show physically for the 2 hours for the first month was that the initial clock, as set out previously, was not suited to requirements. And I also give a reason as to why I think it was not so. I think it was set out by someone who did not have the experience of putting a breakfast show clock together. The program manager who put it together came from a journalistic background. He had never made radio in his life. He was a journalist. So he thought we were selling time. Remember, I told you we are selling emotions. It's a different thing. It requires a different clock and a different skill set. Also, in my opinion, the hiring process was haphazard. As I told you, I got phoned 2 weeks before we went live. My reasons as to why this happened, I think that talent in the radio business is scarce. The unique skill set required for RSG is an aggravating part of this problem, because not only do you need someone who knows radio, they need to be able to speak Afrikaans at a very high level. So somebody who can speak Kombuis Afrikaans is not going to be what is required for this specific skill set between 7 and 9 in the morning. Part of the problem in finding these people that have this unique skill set is that SABC currently are working on a 2016 pay scale to try and get themselves out of their financial problems. But if you are somebody who has these particular skill sets, why would you want to get paid a 2016 pay rate? It's 2022. We all know about the financial strife that everybody's going through. So it becomes really hard to attract high quality people to your organization. Then the members of the team that were approached were each promised something different by this programs manager. According to the three presenters, each of them were the main presenter. Now, there's one thing that I'm sure all of you can attest to. A partnership is a sinking ship. So each of these people who are in the radio business come with a certain amount of ego. Nobody who gets into radio can honestly say they have no ego, because you really need to have an ego to think that when you speak into a microphone to 1.4 million people, the things that you are saying are worth listening to. It is an ego game. So now to manage these egos, nothing happened, because as we started this, the program manager went missing. So, as I say here, from the plan to what happened in reality, I mentioned to you the 8 to 9 program, Praat Saam, where the woman was turned off at main control. Her name is Annette Francis Purin. She was a much-loved presenter on RSG. And on the day that she was going to say goodbye to her audience, she was turned off at main control, and there was music playing where she should have been speaking and saying goodbye. As I said, this gave the section of the press who have a financial interest in seeing RSG fail the ammunition required for a negative sentiment that was then amplified. Then what happened was, we got no feedback from anybody in a managerial position, other than on day one, when the feedback from the manager was, "You guys sound great," which is not what you want to hear. Like, sounding great and delivering a good product, two very, very different things. So this then created a growing distrust amongst the members of the teams for various reasons. Some members of the team felt that they were pulling all the weight while others were just coasting. One of the members of our team, we found out only a week into, or we found out the first day that he wasn't very good. But the guy who was put on the radio to do traffic had never broadcast live in his life. He was hired with zero experience. So this created massive distrust, because most of the team come from a very experienced broadcast career. This young guy, thrown into the deep end through no fault of his own. He didn't hire himself and put him on air. Someone hired him and put him on air. Then also, I've put here some members' lack of PBS experience. PBS, Public Broadcast Service. The RSG is one of many public broadcast services at the SABC. All of South Africa's official languages, except for sign language, because sign language cannot be broadcast on the radio. The other 11 official languages in South Africa all have a public broadcast radio station that have mandates to fill. These mandates include promotion of the language and culture, making sure that everybody is provided a news product within their language. So there are some mandates that a public broadcast service need to meet, as opposed to a commercial broadcast station. At the SABC, there are 3 commercial broadcast stations, 5FM being one of them, Good Hope FM being one of them, and Metro FM being one of them. This will become important later into the presentations. So that's basically the problems that happened. Now, on the 16th of May, a workshop was called to try and alleviate some of the problems that had happened. This ended up going from a workshop to basically being a reprimand, because us as the breakfast team had no input into the meeting. We just got told all the things that were wrong. And no one was offering particular advice. It seemed to me at the time that a lot of the RSG staff would also been affected by the changes that had been made. They thought that this workshop had given them a platform to just air their grievances. So the net effect was a team that felt even more let down because what was intended to be a workshop ended without there being a clear path forward of how we're going to fix this. So now we've got a demoralized team. We don't know where we're going. And last Monday, crisis meeting at the station manager's office where I put this together. And these are things that I had learned from my time doing the management development program at the UFS Business School. And I just used the basic things that we had been taught in that course to try and find a way to manage our way out of this crisis. So I then, in my mind, I said, we need to find out what is the mandate of the show. Because when we were approached initially, the mandate of the show was initially to create a commercial breakfast show on the Afrikaans service to generate money. Then when the crisis happened, what happened at the station they put on a survey onto the website as to wanting to find out what the current listeners wanted to hear. The first problem with that kind of a survey is, and if you're doing it on your own platforms, you are talking to people who are already consuming your product. The problem that RSG as a radio station has, even though they have 1.5 million listeners, most of those 1.5 million listeners are over the age of 60. It's an aging listenership. Aging listenerships are not very popular with advertisers. So that became a question. Has the mandate changed after the survey was conducted? And then point 3, are the people currently tasked with providing this mandate the correct people for the job? I basically was saying to the management, have you hired the correct people? I then went through what I thought some of the solutions were. So as I mentioned, the RSG listenership is aging. This listenership is not attractive to potential advertisers. To attract young listeners that are attractive to potential buyers, the new product that is this open bucket breakfast show that we do, we will have to provide something different to what has been there all the time. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So we'll have to find a balance between trying to get these new listeners and not estranging the current listenership who are very loyal and very passionate about their radio station at RSG. So then I went on to try and provide some solutions, and please know that these are just my opinions. And you know what I say about opinions? Everybody's got one. But with my 15 or 16 years in commercial radio, I then tried to pave a way forward. So the first thing when you have any business, you need to find out who your customers are. In radio, we have what we call P1 and P2 listeners, position 1, position 2. Your P1 listener is the main listener that your radio station is trying to attract. Now, every other commercial radio station in South Africa are very clear on who their P1 listener is. Stations like KFM down in the Cape, 94.7 in Joburg, Jacaranda in Pretoria, OFM down in Central South Africa, and East Coast Radio down in KZN. They are targeting a 25 to 40-year-old mother of 2. For the simple reason is that a 25 to 40-year-old mother of 2 makes the purchasing decisions for the family. It's as simple as that. It might sound stereotypical. Yes, we are in 2022 where the roles of moms and dads is changing, but overall in South Africa, the purchasing decisions of a family is made by mom because mom does the shopping, because dad is working. It is still a very old model. It will change, and this will also mean that the P1 and the P2 listeners will change as time goes on. But as of right now, to get a clear picture in your head as a radio station and as a marketer. Who are we speaking to? A mother of two, 25 to 40 years old. That's who we're talking to. So, can the team that they had put together for this project, can they capture this market? So then what I did was, and I was very clear when doing this presentation that no one is only 3 bullet points. People are way more complex than that. But we have 3 presenters. Sue Paler-Slubbert, who is sunshine in Hubert form. She exudes happiness. She's passionate about the art. She's very well connected in the art world and has a wealth of experience. So yes, I think she ticks a box. Gustav has the ability to conduct the hard-hitting interviews, which after the survey that had been done, it came out that people wanted more hard-hitting news between the hours of 7 and 8 when they were driving to work. They wanted to get all facts and get what was happening in the world. This is the guy to do it because he reads the news on SABC News on the Afrikaans service on SABC2. He's credible, he's passionate about news and music, he has contacts in the political world and news spheres, and has a wealth of PBS and commercial experience. 100%, this guy ticks a box. The sports guy, he's very happy-go-lucky, he loves sport and entertainment. However, Afrikaans is his second language, and that was a lot of the negative feedback we were getting, is that some of his Afrikaans presentation wasn't right. So how do we take that and turn that negative into a positive? I'm getting to that in a little while. So to carry on with the team, we've got Blaine. This is the young man who is the traffic guy. Blaine is a young guy starting his broadcasting career, but he's literally starting his broadcast career, which means he doesn't have much experience. I've said to him on several occasions, since we've been working together now for the last 2 and a bit months, I think what has happened to him is grossly unfair, because he hasn't been taught, he hasn't been given any training, he's literally been thrown into the deep end. Luckily, I've now taken him under my wing, and we are basically on the job training this guy. And lots of you I know will have to do this in your own businesses. Skills are scarce. Sometimes you have to teach somebody on the job to do the thing that they are required to do. It's hard, it's frustrating, but sometimes that process ends up with a better product in the end than had you got somebody who had a certain amount of experience. Because Afrikaans have a fantastic saying, jy kan hom met die hand groot maak. You can groom someone to be the kind of presenter you want. So I am now grooming this young man as the producer of the show to be the kind of traffic presenter that I need him to be. He's not the finished article yet, but he'll get there. So me, I'm passionate about music. I have limited Afrikaans contact. Afrikaans is also not my first language. So that is a negative. However, I have a wealth of commercial experience from my time at OFM. I've worked at 94.7. I've worked at Jacaranda. I've worked at OFM. So I come with a lot of commercial experience. I know how to make a show like this work. So how can this team that has been through these fires win this battle? In any team, I think you need to play to your team's strengths, not to their weaknesses. You need to educate the listener as to why these changes had to be made. And this is not a lecture to your listener. This is basically just small snippets of information that let our listeners know that the SABC are in deep financial trouble. The government are no longer subsidizing the SABC. The taps are closed. The SABC has to be able to run itself on its own steam. It has all the tools necessary to do it. They just have to do it properly. You'll see this next point. Establishing a zoo presenting style that fits the address here. The zoo presenting style refers to a breakfast team with more than one presenter. They call that the zoo because the first radio station to ever do it came from New York. It's a station called Zoo 100, and the name stuck. As soon as breakfast teams had more than one presenter, it became a zoo format. Then, in any team, you need to empower the team with responsibilities and tasks that are measurable. So unless you tell someone what to do and give them a goal as to what this thing needs to achieve at the end of the thing that they've done, they will just keep doing the thing that they think is right. So I then asked the management to, give the producer the role. Okay, let me be, I'm not just the producer now, I'm the director of the show. Every day we make a movie basically, and I'm live directing how I want the show to be presented. Here I go into breaking down the content requirements. Remember earlier in the presentation, I showed you a clock that wasn't fit for requirements. Here I break down a clock that is fit for requirements. It gives space for ads. It gives space for competitions, for potential sponsors to insert themselves should we get them. You'll see that some of the competition blocks either have an insert from a presenter or are set out as competition blocks. And these are just simple ways, because now you know presenter Gustav needs to prepare newspaper headlines. At 7:15, there's a big interview that needs to be prepared by Gustav. Then we know that the next thing that needs to happen in terms of content, Sue needs to have an insert, Robbie needs to have an insert. Because we know at 10 to 8 every morning we've got the business news presented by Davie Root. Why do we have it at 10 to? Because we want the businessman who is driving to work, who is businessman or woman, who is driving to work, the last thing they hear before they close the door and walk into the office to be the business news. It gives them a reason to stay in the car. Plus, we put that after an ad break so they can listen to the ads. It makes it more attractive to a potential advertiser. With 8 to 9 content requirement, also a mix of all three presenters. 4 inserts are needed in this hour. We put in an insert that is revolving. It can be either one of the 3 presenters. 15:15, we can have a lighter interview, which can be done by Sue or Robbie. 35, we can have maybe a musical feature, because part of the musical offering on RSG is classical music. It is a very much loved part of the RSG musical offering. And as the breakfast show, you can't completely move away from the sound of the station. So we had found these solutions to try and making these things. These are just some features that were in. Then in any team, as I mentioned earlier, roles and responsibilities, you need to be clear on who does what and what is the deliverable at the end of this. And these were all questions that were answered in our meeting last week as to who does what and where and how and who has final editorial say. None of these things had been discussed with the team before we started, which also then led to lots of the unhappiness and to lots of the dishevel that was created on air. So once we had these things, the last 2 weeks have gone much better. There's a much better mood in the studio, and you can hear it on air as well, because people know what they have to do. They can do that thing to the best of their ability, and we can hold each other accountable. And that is a massively important for any team. I think whether you're a sports team, a business team, if you don't trust the person standing next to you, the team is never going to go anywhere. Distrust is a team killer. And that is basically the end of my presentation. Are there any questions, perhaps?
You see, Andrè, firstly, thank you very much. And I must say, I am very, very astounded with some of the stats you were saying. I mean, that half the people in South Africa can understand Afrikaans. I think another thing that's important, right, is if you look at because I was just interested. It's like okay, in South Africa we've got all these brands on people, but there's a lot less white Afrikaans people than colored Afrikaans people, 100%. Which also means there's a huge opportunity there.
And you also see how that's a massive problem with the team that was set up, because exactly. if I had set up the team wouldn't look like that, because the biggest potential for growth in the Afrikaans market are amongst colored speaking Afrikaans people in the Cape. So I would have appointed as a presenter more colored presenters because it makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes
that's
sense.
That's where your trafficologist there is, and you say you're hand growing them. It's like that could be like an absolute diamond in the rough there.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
But that's interesting, Andre, and so I can't 100% remember how many listeners Radio 5 had when you took it to fix it, but it had less than.
Yeah, so I can actually give you an update on that. When we started the project last year to fix Radio 5, 5FM, we had 680,000 listeners. This year we have 1.1 million.
So Radio Sonder Grense still whips Radio 5.
Radio Sonder Grense has more listeners than 5FM, yes.
My gosh. But I mean, it's exciting actually, Andre, to see, because, we all thought Afrikaans were dying because everybody sort of started speaking English. But I had a thing with the HAT, and they were saying, when they handed the language back to where it comes from, which is the colored environment, the coloreds, all of a sudden the language is happy and thriving, So it's like...
It's very happy and very thriving. And it's one of the youngest languages in the world.
Yes.
And it's doing big things. And it's
And I think something else that I really, and I will hand over to the team now. And I've just seen some of the comments. I mean, some of the things we covered this week, that trust, that communication, that stakeholders. I mean, you can do the best plan in the world. Those things are absolute killers if you don't do it right.
The soft skills, I mean,
are the hard skills, isn't it?
It's hard because, in the presentation I mentioned that on May the 16th, we had a workshop to try and fix it. But that workshop actually did more damage than anything that had happened up to that point, because then we really felt isolated, because we felt that not only was the press and the outside world against us, people in our own organization were against us as well. Yeah. Yeah. And then there was no trust. Everyone felt you cannot go forward
without trust. Yeah.
And funnily enough, after Monday, when we had set out the roles and responsibilities, who does what, it's been a 180-degree turn.
Wow, wonderful, Andre. That's amazing. I must say, that's amazing. I mean, wow. I was really interested in your next step. I thought it was just the next step with Radio 5. But wow, I mean, this is like, what a challenge, but what an opportunity, isn't it? So well, this is not for the faint-hearted, but sure, the opportunities there must be massive.
Well, I think that in any organization, the bigger the challenge that's in front of you, I think, is as big as the opportunity is.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, if it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. But I mean, I think we are going to see in this time of financial strife that we're going through, I think we're going to see innovation. I think we're going to see South Africans doing incredible things, innovating, rejuvenating their businesses, becoming leaner, and people are going to be upskilling themselves in all kinds of ways. The days of having a job for life, we know that's gone.
Yeah.
The days of continual learning are definitely with us. I mean, part of my job now is to handle 3 massive egos. So I basically have to become a psychologist now and a human resource manager while driving the desk and directing a radio show. And it's a challenge, but it's one that I'm really loving, because to put your own ego aside and massage, yes, it's really, it's interesting. So yeah.
Andre, just one more question from me. What did you do with the Tannie that got cut off? Did you guys do anything to sort of, or did you rather just let it go? Or?
Well, I mean, she's so, and rightly so, she is so upset and so bitter with the SABC.
Okay.
I think what I'd like to do as a producer, and I think it could be but I think some time has to pass.
Yes, let it heal a bit.
Maybe a year later, we go and find out what she's doing now, how she's made a success of the next step of her career. Because she will. She's a very talented woman and a very talented broadcaster. But I think as a sort of an olive branch from RSG, who, I mean, this is where a single manager and a single decision can do such damage to your brand.
Yeah.
Because in her eyes, it's not this manager that did her wrong.
No,
it's the radio station.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And that is why, I mean, it's such being a manager is actually a thankless task. It's a thankless task because you think, I take it in my case, you think a program manager of a radio station, you're dealing with creative stuff and you're dealing with sales. No, you're dealing with Marietta Creer, who is fanging a scallum roki in the stairwell of the SABC, and she's not allowed to do that. Yeah. You're dealing with admin and HR, and and that's where often the Peter principle. Don't promote someone to a manager to give them more money. Yeah. If they're doing a great job as whatever the thing is they're doing, don't think you need to take them out of there. Just remunerate them more. Because that person, maybe that is what they want to do. Some people have the ambition to become managers, and they come and they do these kind of courses and they do the MDP or whatever it is, and they upskill themselves to get it. But some people are perfectly happy.
Yeah.
To be, like me, I am a creative person. I don't want to be a manager. I want to make radio and be in the studio and push the buttons and have fun talking to people. That's what I want to do. If you take me out of that, I'll wither.
Yeah, not exactly your best job trying to control other people like you. Andrè, can I ask a sensitive question maybe? With government pulling the sponsorship on SABC, does it mean that the political involvement is going to be less? As far as management and stuff is concerned.
Well, one would hope so, because
okay.
That is one of the main problems with, and we've seen it with the SABC in the past. It went from being the National Party's mouthpiece back to being the ANC's mouthpiece. And we've just gone through a bunch of firings from people, etc., and people were being hounded out of newsrooms. So you want your public broadcaster, your national broadcaster, to be without any political interference.
Yes.
So it would be a good thing for, firstly, the SABC as an organization to stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And not need a bailout, because we have all the tools. A simple thing. The only organization in South Africa that has any radio stations that broadcast in the African languages of South Africa are the SABC. How we are not making billions of rands is beyond.
Exactly. And also the only radio station that broadcasts all over the country.
Exactly. We've got the biggest footprint, the biggest reach. How we don't dominate sales is beyond me. But once again, over years and years and years of bad management, these systems have crumbled and fallen down, and we're now having to build them from ground zero now. As we speak, the SABC are going through austerity measures. You cannot buy anything at the SABC until the end of October because of the financial predicament the organization's in. Yet, Good Hope and 5FM are making money hand over fist. But the problem is those two stations can't carry the entire organization.
Yeah. Andrè, I just see a comment from Andrè, and I'm gonna let just a couple of let them just ask you a couple of questions or whatever. 100%. But I think the one thing we must all 100% acknowledge is your passion and then your brutal honesty, because honest, if you're not honest, you can't fix the problems. But thank you for that, Andrè, and most amazing presentation. Guys, questions for Andrè? There's been a lot of messages flying, Andrè. So any specific questions for Andrè? Yes, Salesh. There we go.
Hi, Prof. Andrè, love the energy, love the passion. You're in it to win it, love it. I just want to find out, you are on your presentation that you did, the last part, whereby is there no confusion caused by you having 3 people set out? Is there no clashes in terms of how they, what they present for that 15 minutes? Or is it A, B, C, or is it C, B, A, or 1, 2, 3, or I'm just curious about that part of how you do that part.
It's a massive problem because there's no locus of control. Generally in a normal radio team, everybody knows who the presenter is. So what will then happen is the presenter will give context, and then he'll hand over to somebody. From that person, I'll come back to the presenter, then hand to somebody. But with 3 presenters who are now equal, I've actually had to step in. I'm the locus of control now. I basically, so a simple example, let's say Robbie has an interview, but I've got 3 presenters. So what I then do is I get Sue to back announce the song that was just played and hand over to Robbie, who then conducts an interview. At the end of Robbie, I get Gustav to throw forward to the next piece of content that's on its way. So I managed to incorporate the entire team into what we're doing. But that needs management constantly. It's like on-the-job management. Where in a normal radio studio, like when I was at OFM, I was the presenter of the drive show. So I was the locus of control. I could speak. I knew what I was going to say. I knew which buttons I was going to push. I knew who I was going to get to do what. When instead of them, me as the director now has control, but no speaking.
Okay, cool.
So that's the 3 egos that you have to manage on an ongoing basis. Yeah. And you can't make a mistake because there's 1.5 million people listening to you.
I just one more thing, Andrè, while you're there. Yes. This planning that you do with these intervals, I know obviously news updates every day, how do you plan that? Is it like daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? How do you do that?
So yes, it is all of those things. So you'll know that we know we've got things coming up that we need to plan for. We'll know that next week like I already know in 2 weeks' time I've got some competitions that are booked on the show, and then I've already got my planning content-wise. I'm pretty much Tuesday. I'm at 90% finished with Tuesday. So Friday is already in the can. I know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. I know exactly what's going to happen on Monday. Tuesday is nearly there. That'll be done hopefully by tomorrow, at latest on Monday, and so I'll keep going. And so it means you've got to keep in touch with the news. I'm a news slave like all of us, like most people. So you're always watching for news and what's happening and angles and stories and things like that and who to speak to. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
Okay, cool. And the last question that I have for you, what's going to be our discount for My Way for the morning show to be on the radio?
Yeah, good sales, guys.
I love it. My Way. I've got a. Oh, you must talk to me. I've got a fantastic Women's Month campaign for My Way. That'll be perfect for you guys.
Fantastic.
Please give me a shout. I'll send you the proposal today.
All right, send me the proposal. I'm not the right guy, but send me the proposal where we
like this.
Where we want to. I mean, we got to make the business grow. So you grow, we grow. Let's do it together.
And you don't even have to change it to my weg, because every Afrikaans woman understands My Way.
Yes, it's on the highway.
Cool, Andrè, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ironically, and then we went on to that.
No, so you said there you can't make a mistake. I think that is the one thing that people should stay away from. You can make a mistake.
Oh, you can.
In fact, in life, as in radio, as in anything, if you don't make a mistake, you'll never learn anything.
Okay.
Mistakes are critical, and I think that is why this show is now turning around, and it's why it'll be, in my opinion, in a year's time when we have this conversation again, it will be successful and we'll be making money hand over fist because we made so many mistakes. And now we've seen the mistakes. You can learn from them. That smart planning that you guys taught me about so many years ago there at the University of the Free State Business School.
But it's also being honest about it, Andrè. That's what I like, man. Is you're not trying to hide it. You're saying, guys, that's what's wrong. So because then you know what to fix.
Well, I think we come from, especially if you listen to, let's call it honest. If you listen to some of the government excuses for some of the things that happen, we're not being honest.
Yeah.
Let's tackle the real problem. And organizations have to be honest with what, you can treat a symptom only for so long.
Yeah.
But to fix the problem totally, you've got to get to the core of the thing. And I think honesty is the only way to do that.
Yeah. Yahweh, Andrè, this was so entertaining. I just want to see if there's any more questions for you. And we know that you're busy. But it's so nice to have you on, and so any more questions for Andrè?
Prof, I'm gonna pop my email address on the chat. Andre, you can
Okay.
take it down. Please send me that proposal so
Okay.
we can get things rolling for you. I mean,
love
as I
this.
said, you make
This
money, I
is-
make money. We in sales.
Yeah,
That's it.
That's it.
All right, thank you.
We're all in sales, no matter whether we want to admit it or not. So
Life is a
fantastic,
sale,
guys.
Prof. Life is a sale. You're either
Exactly,
closing or
exactly.
you're being closed.
You know what they say? Business makes stuff and sell stuff, Salish. That's it. That's the long
That's-
and short of it. Everything else is just there to support it.
I'm busy
Andre?
putting. Yeah.
Okay, what happens if you're unable to attend for a day? Okay, that may be a good question, Andre.
What happens
So-
if I can't attend?
Yeah. So most probably now's not an option, but what if you can't attend?
So we are freelance workers at the SABC, or most of the on-air staff. So I mean, if we don't go to work, we don't get paid.
Right.
So I mean, there's a financial incentive to not miss work. But you know, it always amazes me, the radio model, that you would give your product and let it be sold by people who you don't employ full time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's a crazy way to do it.
Andre,
So
sounds like the universities.
exactly right.
That's
So
why thank God we've got the Maoris. Honestly, I mean, it's. But yeah, but I think Andre more asked it in the context of you've got 3 serious egos to manage.
Yeah.
So you actually, what's going to happen if you're not there? You actually can't afford not to be there because you don't want it to go south.
No, but you put in, so what we've done is we've put in systems into place.
Okay, processes so that handles
Process.
it.
Yeah. So like at the moment, I'm busy in the implementation phase, and I'm basically showing how the implementation works.
Right.
But should I go, the other 3 are all capable of pushing the buttons.
Okay.
They will just have to take that role on board, as well as what else they're doing. Yeah.
I suppose that putting those processes in and communicate them clearly helps that.
Crucial. It's crucial, because if someone doesn't know what you expect them to do,
Then how can they do it?
they will do what they think they need to do.
Yeah.
Until you correct them. And then should you correct them in a manner that's, like if you reprimand them,
Yeah.
you're going to create a worse problem, which is kind of what happened to us.
Yeah.
We were given no direction, thrown in the deep end, and then from there, we didn't know what you told us you wanted, and what it ended up that you really wanted were 2 different things.
Yeah. Andre, just thank you very, 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 very much. And I'm actually going to go listen to Aris here. It's just nice to say, because I know you're there at the back, right?
So, I'll be there pushing the button.
Pushing the button. So that's great. But Andre, thank you very much, and thanks for sharing with us. It's absolutely fantastic.
No, it's only a pleasure, and it's such a privilege to speak to you guys. What course are you busy doing now, Prof?
That advanced project management, Andre.
Yes. So you actually.
No shame. They left crawling through this for 33 weeks.
Yeah. No, good luck to you. I mean, I did the MDP, and when I did it initially, I thought, I want to be a broadcaster, and I've used what I've learned in that MDP almost every day in all manner of things just to survive my daily broadcasting career. So it's really, really useful, and you can never learn too much.
Yeah.
So well done to all of you, 33 plus people here who are studying, and good luck, and I hope you smash the exams out the park. I did put my email address up. It's andre@andrekunz.co.za. It's very simple. So I'd love to hear from you, emails. If you had any questions that you were too shy to ask in front of your classmates, I'm quite happy to reply to an email.
Andre, thank you so much.
Only a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks.